I think this training, so it's going to be more tailored to the beginners just because there's a ton of beginners out here. And basically, what we're going to talk about today is how to optimize what you're currently doing right now. So if you're doing any sort of marketing, my goal is to teach you something where you're not having to have to spend more money and optimizing your current business model. Okay. And the number one thing is having a sales process and having, scripts, systems, and operations that kind of help you out. Okay. So let's go to the here. Can you guys see my slides here? All right. Look at this handsome man over here, right? So just kidding. So yeah, my name's Tim. I know a lot of you guys probably don't know who I am. So we'll kind of go through all these different things in the slide deck here. But this is our sales training, our sales masterclass to help you guys out here, okay? So let's go to the presentation here. All right, so this is how we kind of help out investors, right? So we do a ton of free master classes out here, and this is one of them right now. We also do 2-day boot camps, but that's just down the road. And then we also run a new breed investors community. We have a free one for everybody, and I'll show you that, guys, that in a second of what we give out in our free stuff. So here's a little man climbing a mountain here. This is us right now climbing this mountain to step 3, which is getting to our wholesale business fully operational and capable without you being in it, right? So the only thing that I ask is that you remove your distractions, but I did mention to everybody that I do have a free giveaway today, right? And this is how we're going to do the giveaway today. So what I want you to do, if you guys do not follow me on Instagram, take a picture, not of this slide, because this is a really boring slide, but take a picture of the next slide or something like that. Tag me on Instagram, and that's how we're going to pick our winners. So we're going to announce all the different giveaways at the very end of the presentation. And I think some of these prizes that we're going to give out is going to be pretty dope. All right. So it's just a random dude talking to you on a screen right now for like, I don't know. I think my last training, has anybody went to some of my last trainings before? Okay, if it's a no, that's perfect. Okay, so if you ever done one of my trainings, we go for like 2, 3 hours. Okay, so sometimes these things go on forever. I answer everyone's questions in the Q&A, so I'll sit here forever asking your question, answering your questions. But please participate in the chat. Okay, if you guys don't know who Ric Flair is, he's the crazy WWE superstar back in the day that always yells "woo," right? So if I teach you guys something new and you guys learn something new, please type a woo in the freaking chat, okay? So this is let's do a quick practice run here. Throw some woos in the chat. That's what I'm talking about. Let's go. You Ric Flair guys. Okay. So what we're gonna cover today, okay? So I'll give you a quick agenda. So we're gonna learn about me, my background story, so you guys get to know me a little better. What my real estate investment business looks like. So Top Gap Homes is my company. I'll talk about, who's on my team, how we kind of run operations here, and you'll notice one key thing that I have a really lean team. So we're going to cover the stages of wholesale, how to build a profitable and predictable business. We're also going to do marketing problems, how it affects you. And then the most important part, which is going to take the entire training, is the sales and acquisitions. And then I'll talk about the 2-day workshop. So this is me. If you guys have watched Forrest Gump, you'll notice that this is Lieutenant Dan. Okay, so this is Lieutenant Dan here. This is when I was deployed to Iraq in like 2018. He actually came to visit us, right? So he's a pretty awesome, super veteran friendly dude. But I'm a full-time military guy, so I'm still in the army. I'm actually getting out this year after I pay back some obligation time. Yeah, actually, Lieutenant Dan actually has some legs, but if you watch the movie, he's got those new like steel legs, right? So he's walking on those new legs. But yeah, so I work full time. I managed my wholesale business, with a team and all this stuff while working a full time job. So I do want to let you guys know that this is absolutely possible if you have a full time job. So I worked for a wholesale company my first 6 months in real estate. So I started in 2022 and I was a cold caller and I became an acquisition manager and I went up the pipeline myself. Yeah, dude, Luis with the Air Force stuff, man. Get out of here, bro. And then so after cold calling for a while, and guys, I thank you guys for your service as well. But in 2022, I ended up, after I cold called for 6 months, I actually went on my own, right? So I started cold calling. I joined different real estate communities. So you probably know me from different communities like with Pace or Results Driven or any other masterminds like that. I've been through all the different programs. And my first year in 2023, I bought 9 properties from doing direct to seller calls and investments, and most of them were on creative finance. So that story actually got me highlighted on the Bigger Pockets back in the day. And that's how I kind of started my social media journey and all that craziness after that. So in 2024, which is last year, we tripled down on our wholesale business. I've spent over $76,000 in marketing in just last year alone. And there's a lot of different programs out there that kind of teach you that you have to do inbound marketing, you have to spend a lot of money to make money, which it is absolutely true. You do need to spend money to make money. However, I want to teach you guys how to properly scale your business safely and also not over leveraging yourself, right? So I know a lot of different investors out here that spend five to $10,000 a month on various inbound marketing strategies, and they don't have the most important skill. They don't have the skill to close deals. So you can spend all the money in the entire world and you're still not going to get deals if you don't know how to talk to people, right? So that's what this training is for, trying to optimize what you're currently doing because with a good sales process, you can literally close any deal in the world. If you're door knocking, if you're calling foreclosure, whatever you're doing, you're going to close deals, right? You don't need to spend all that money when you're first starting out. So in 2024, towards the end and of this year, we've shifted our entire business model to making our first 100K in a month in January. And we actually did it with extremely low marketing spend, right? So we train our acquisition managers completely different. We did a whole marketing shift, which I'll cover a little bit because I did a huge 3-hour training on marketing about 3 months ago, and I don't want to bore you guys with all that stuff. But I'll quickly do an overview later on today about marketing and then how I'm going to teach you guys to do the same. So, does anybody have that kind of feeling where you guys are spending all this money or you're spending all this time calling and you're not getting your first deal? Is that how you guys are feeling right now? Okay, a couple of you guys. Okay. Inconsistent deal flow and working on deals. Absolutely. So this is my current team right now. So this is us in Louisville. So if you guys live in Louisville, Kentucky, you'll recognize this place. This is Haux out in Germantown. I had my whole team out there after we were doing a renovation on one of our houses, our flips here. And you'll see that I have a partner here. His name is Jake. He runs the operations, he runs the back end, and he runs the dispo, right? So what he does is he manages our virtual assistants, he hosts team meetings, he tracks all the KPIs, and that is the sole reason how I can do all this stuff with a full-time job, right? I'm not doing all the crazy day-to-day activities. I'm more focused on building relationships, building connections, and also training the acquisition managers to close more deals, right? So that's how I started in the business by doing acquisitions. So that's what I focus on. Rob here, the guy on the right wearing the big stomp t-shirt, he was my number one closer. He's my lead acquisition manager. And then now we have a lead manager who's Edwin. He's brand new. He does the cold calls, he sets appointments, and he also does the follow-ups. And if you notice, I do not have virtual assistants doing cold calls. Okay, so who in the chat has been taught that you need to use virtual assistants in your business? I think virtual assistants are absolutely crucial, but they freaking blow on the phone, right? Has anybody experienced virtual assistants cold calling? I'm just saying, dude. The reason why they don't perform the best way, the first thing is language barrier is definitely an issue, but two, a lot of people get taught to purchase or not purchase, hire virtual assistants and they don't train them, right? They just expect them to get hired off from the Philippines or Egypt or whatever and expect them to perform really well. There's a lot of training that has to go into it, more training than you would have to put into an American cold caller, right? Also, American cold callers, they understand sarcasm. They understand the human relationships, right? Like I'll tell you a freaking crazy story before we go on to the next slide. Is I had a virtual assistant calling a pre-foreclosure, and the person goes, "Hey, my dad passed away, and I didn't even know that he had a mortgage, so it's going through foreclosure." And my Philippine virtual assistant went, "Oh, okay. Thank you so much for the information. Can I talk about that? Like, what's the property condition?" He just went down the checklist. right? And anyone that's been in the wholesale space or sales, industry will realize that, dude, he just dropped the ball on a huge opportunity, right? Oh my God, I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, how long have you been dealing with this foreclosure? Right? There's so many different questions to ask, which we'll go deeper into it later in the training. But that was just the one thing that kind of just blew my mind, right? All these human emotion and connections just kind of blow past their brain, right? Just like what Bobby said, managing human emotion is everything, and virtual assistants just struggle with that. Now, with all that being said, I still use virtual assistants in my business, but I use them for a different reason, right? So I use them for loading data, managing the CRM. They do the daily tasks, and they also help Jake with operations. So, one of our virtual assistants, they actually scrub the MLS data. I'm not really a direct to agent investor, but we actually have that where we have a VA that's scrubbing the MLS every single day, loading the data into our automations just to book appointments with agents, right? So there's definitely good opportunity for VAs to work in your business. I just don't prefer using them in my acquisition pipeline. Cool. So I got to do this, right? I can't guarantee you success, right? So I know some people getting sued out there and stuff like that. So I just want to tell you, like, hey, I'm not going to promise you anything, but I'm going to tell you what I do in my personal business of how we succeed, and hopefully you take some of the little nuggets that I give you, and then boom, we can continue. Okay. Cool. So if you guys have been in Tiffany High's program, right? I love this slide, so I gotta give her credit for this, right? So there's stages of business that you're in for wholesaling, right? And this is the first stage that we go through. When I went through her program a few years back, I was like, holy crap, this is me, right? Survival mode. This is when you are by yourself, you're not a business, you don't have your taxes right, you have an LLC that has properties, flipping, all these different things. That was literally me. I had one LLC and it had flipping income, it had rental income, and it had wholesale income. And I literally got slapped in the face by my CPA, and I learned my lesson from that. It was the most excruciating tax return I've ever done. And survival mode is basically you just never know where your first deal is. You don't know when the next, deal is ever going to come. You're spending money on systems, you're spending money on data, and you don't know how to track things. You're not tracking things at all. This is where I was when I first started wholesaling. How many people are in the survival phase right now? Type a one in the chat. Dude, it sucks, right? It freaking sucks. But don't worry, after your first couple of deals, you'll move on to the next phase. Oh God, I'm going too fast. Okay, stage number two, you're starting to see results, right? You're starting to see results here. You're getting your deal, you're getting two. Think about it this way: when you're wholesaling for the first time and you haven't closed a deal yet, right? Or you've closed your first deal, but you don't know when the second one is. If has anybody been watching the NBA finals right now? Think about it when you shoot a ball or a foul throw or foul line throw, whatever, and you see the ball bouncing off the rim, bouncing off the rim. You're like, holy cow! I've been practicing all this time. SGA is the man, by the way, guys. If you guys aren't watching, it's going to be Oklahoma City in 6 because Tyrese Halliburton just got hurt. So, it sucks that he's hurt, but I think that's the end of the run for the Pacers here. But production phase in real estate is when you shoot the basketball and you see the basketball go to the hoop for the first time. It's kind of like a holy crap, like this thing actually works. Like this is insane, right? And once you see the ball go to the hoop and you make your first 10, $20,000 check, you're starting to really self-believe in yourself. And then when you have a little bit of extra money, you can start expanding your marketing spend, right? Because the ultimate way to actually scale this wholesale business is to spend money eventually, but you have to spend money more efficiently, right? And usually this is when you're first starting to hire or look to hire your first teammate, either a virtual assistant or you're going to hire like a lead manager. All right, so momentum is the next stage, that's stage number three. That's when your team is about three or more people. You're starting to track all your different metrics, right? And we'll talk about KPIs in the marketing review in this part, but you also need to start investing money into your team structure and all these other things, right? You're going to start recruiting people, right, through using Upwork or Indeed. You're going to hire real people off the street, put them into employment status, and you're going to train them to be killers on the phones. And then everything is just more of a business now, right? You're tracking everything, you're doing everything the right way. The next stage is growth, right? Now you have systems in place where you can literally copy paste. So this is a story that I always tell where if the reason why I stopped flipping mostly, right? So my partner, Phil Ty, he does a lot of flipping, but I actually focus more on the wholesale because I'm a true believer that if you narrow down your systems, you get everything knocked out and good to go, you can literally duplicate that system and move it to a different market, right? So I'm a big component and fan of virtual wholesaling. I know a lot of people want to do it in their backyard, but sometimes doing it in your backyard is not really efficient, right? So if you guys don't know me, I remember I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. That's where the Kentucky Derby's at. You know, we love bourbon, all that stuff, but it is an absolute war zone of a wholesale business, right? There's not a lot of leads, or the leads you get is a really bad neighborhood. There's a lot of code violations, a lot of city liens, all these different things, and it's just not really to me a crazy good market. So I decided to go virtual to a bigger market. So I'm in Houston, Texas. It's a huge city. There's a lot of opportunity, and don't be afraid of competition, right? If there's a lot of competition, that means you have a lot of good buyers out there. So we can actually move deals pretty quick. And when you're in this phase here, yeah, I know George is from H-Town, but a lot of it is diverse marketing, right? So when you're starting to make, 20, 30, $50,000 net profit a month in your business, now you have money to spend on PPC. You have direct mail, you have, all these TV ads. You could do all these different things when you start making money and you have multiple channels of marketing. I legit have 3 houses working on in Houston right now. Well, Brian, we got to connect after this, bro. Absolutely. Cool. All right. So, building a profitable and predictable business. So, this is probably what everyone's here for. And we'll do a quick overview because remember, I was talking about marketing and KPIs, right? Data and leads. Shit data in, you're gonna get shit results out, right? That's basically what it is. Data, is everything for your business. So if you have really bad data, you're not gonna get results. And how many of you guys are bulk dialing off these websites? Like, I don't want to name any websites personally because I don't want to get, sued or anything, but there's websites or softwares where you pay $100 a month and you pull 10, 20, 30,000 records. As a solopreneur, if a lot of you guys are 0 to 1, right? In the very beginning, a lot of you guys had 0 to 1 deals. You can't physically call 10, 20, 30,000 people by yourself, right? You need to hire VAs, you need to hire acquisition managers, and you need to do all these things, but you're not ready to do that, right? So that's the problem. And when you're doing 10, 20, 30,000 records and you're calling by yourself, I like to compare that to the needle in the haystack method, right? The needle in the haystack method, where you're just digging through all this bullshit to find this one person that's interested in selling. And then you don't have the sales process to actually close that person. So then you're kind of just recycling this process until you just happen to get lucky, right? Does anybody feel that way right now? Because that's how I felt when I first started. Dang, you guys don't feel that way? That's crazy. I was like, okay, so the next thing is marketing and tracking KPIs. We're going to go through that right now after this. But I want to highlight sales and acquisitions because that's what this training is about, right? So, can you guys see this handsome guy in a crazy suit fighting off zombies right now? Can you guys see this? All right, cool. So, as you can see, we're trying to blast through here and save you guys from bandit signs, PPL, and door knocking, okay? So this is our marketing guide here. So I do want to cover a few things about marketing so you guys are caught up to speed if you guys haven't attended my last training. So email marketing, guys, if you guys are not emailing, you need to implement an email marketing campaign, okay? Can I zoom in? Oh, sorry guys. I'm not a technical guy here. That's why I have an operator, okay? All right, cool. So if you guys are not emailing, guys, this is absolutely for free, right? You can do it for free using Google Mail Merge. You can watch a YouTube video on this, and this is a part of your whole like marketing scheme, right? Especially when you're on a budget, especially when you're first starting. So, number one, you're going to be cold calling, right? That's the number one thing you're going to do. You're going to cold call. And number two, you're going to add a low to free marketing channel to help you out. So, email marketing is free. You can do it on a CRM. So if you pay for a CRM, you can automate all your emails like I do. So I automate every single email. I put them in a campaign. I just let them ride. And then we actually track who's opening and reading our emails. Once that happens, my acquisition manager knows that they have to call those sellers, right? So it just makes it easier. Michael Cortez. I just started mail merge and never bounced to check valid emails before sending. Yep. Absolutely. And then guys, if you're doing a CRM, you must make sure that you warm up your email campaigns, right? Do I sell my marketing? Do you sell your marketing sequence for emailing? Yeah, I mean, oh, so I don't really sell it, but we do have a CRM in our school community. So if you join our school community, it's absolutely for free for you. So we actually give you the CRM that I personally use, and it has all the automations. Maria, I use Go High Level, just like almost everybody. So remember, guys, email marketing, it's absolutely free. Cool, cool calling. So you guys, have you guys heard about the new law that just came out or the new case study? So I talked about it on one of my Instagram posts with the Coffee First Fast Easy Offer LLC that just happened on June 5th. So basically, if you guys don't know about it, it's basically saying that if you're asking someone to sell their property or if they're interested in selling their property now or in the near future, it actually does not violate TCPA. So TCPA is the lawsuit that came out or the mechanism that people can sue you for soliciting. And they pretty much determined that it's not violating TCPA. So what we're personally doing is we're actually 3xing our outbound marketing. We're trying to get more cold callers and we're going to start calling DNC, right? So this really affects the do not call guys. And we're just going to start blasting them. And I'll tell you guys right now, the people in this Zoom need to realize that this is the gold rush of 2025. If you guys are not doubling down on cold calling DNCs, you got to do it now before everyone figures out that this is happening, right? There are a lot of investors that do not know that they can cold call. Um, Apparently, this thing does affect the SMS campaign. So a lot of people don't want to SMS because of the lawsuits that were pending and people were getting hemmed up that way. You need to do a little more research. We have not started cold outbound texting again yet, but we're doing a little more data. We're doing a little more research to figure out if that's still the case. Okay. So if that's the case, if SMS is allowed, then you have three different marketing channels you can use on a low budget, right? You can email people, you can cold call people, and then you can do SMS campaigns. So there's literally no excuse, right? And if you guys have not been to my marketing trainings before, I do very niche data, right? So I don't do the 10, 20, 30,000 records from data software companies. I do county courthouse record data. And you can do that for free. I know Houston, Texas, you can literally go on a website and just manually scrub files. So you can have a virtual assistant go through it, or you can have yourself do it, or you can pay a professional company to pull that data, right? So all this is free, and the reason why I do that, right? So if I have 100 records from county courthouse record data, these people, I'm not doing the needle in the haystack method. Every person I do call, right? Every person I do call, they have a reason to sell, right? And if you're dialing in your emails, if you're dialing your text messages to give value first, that call with the acquisition manager, I promise you, will be a lot more friendly, right? So all our emails are very value focused. So then when we do call people, it's like, oh my gosh, like, hey, like you guys are from Top Cap Homes, like appreciate all the emails, man. Like a lot of value, bro. Right? It's a lot of different conversations than saying F you, don't call me back, right? It's a big difference. These are all, I'll send you this, guys. This is all accessible in the school community here. So this is our free school community right here. So these are all the different sales trainings in here. We're going to add more in the free community as well for you guys. And I'm also going to give this marketing guide that I'm going over right now. It's all going to be in this free school community here. So Phil, if you can, dude, if you got an opportunity, can you put the free community in the link in the chat here? So I got Phil like moderating for me. So I appreciate you, bro. PPC, right? This is the most expensive marketing channel. But it is very effective when you start leveling up. There's a bunch of BS that we're not going to cover today. Okay, so marketing, if you're not tracking KPIs, this is what you should be tracking. So in this guide here, I do cover all the different metrics that you can cover with each marketing channel you use. So there's cold calling, number of dials, connection rate, all these different things. And I've also have the metrics that I like to track. So if you're under these metrics, then you probably need to look into your data. So if you don't know, if you're not tracking your data like this, and I know some of you guys have been in the free community as well and been learning, like Tarek tracks his cold calling like a freaking, you know, I love how you track your cold calling, Tarek. So you got to keep that up, right? But and we kind of talked about it yesterday. Like if your connection rate is lower than 6%, maybe it's a data problem, right? Direct mail, PPC, right? You want to track these different things for PPC. And then as a total, right? So you have metrics for your marketing channel. So you have the cold calling metrics, and then you also have metrics for your entire business, right? Total leads. How many did you qualify? Offers made, contracts. What's your average profit for per deal? If you're not tracking that, how can you make decisions for your business, right? You want to find out what your cost per contract is, right? So let's say when I first in 2024, I was spending $76,000 on marketing, right? My average cost per contract was like $10,000 because our sales process wasn't dialed in. We're just getting all these inbound calls and we just couldn't really handle it. And based off our $10,000, cost per contract here, and our average profit per deal was $8,000 in Louisville. So if you guys don't know, the assignment fees were really low in Louisville, and that means I was losing money per deal. So you see how that like really wasn't a good business model for us. So then what we had to do was we had to start flipping. We had to start flipping houses to be able to catch up with our marketing spend. So that's why I was flipping so many houses in Louisville. And if you guys know me, like I think in 2024, I was flipping like 3 houses a month. And that's extremely stressful. I really hated it. And Phil would disagree with me in the chat. But um, hold on. I think I don't know where he's at. There you go. And I had to flip, all these different houses, and I freaking hated it. So that's why we converted to a virtual market where in Houston, our average deal size is about 15 grand per contract, right? Or actually, our assignment fee is about 15 grand. So now we can kind of wholesale and make money and profit, right? So this is what I want to cover. This is what I want to cover for you guys to scale, right? So this is how you're going to scale your business safely and efficiently. So I recommend that you stick to one marketing channel until you get up to $20,000. I know that sounds a lot of really scary to some folks, but eventually you'll start scaling, scaling, scaling. And the reason why I say focus on one is because the problem is, let's say you have $10,000, right? And you spend $3,000 on mail, $3,000 on PPC. You're not giving yourself an opportunity to go through a full cash conversion cycle, right? If you guys don't know what a cash conversion cycle is when you put $1 in, how long does it take for you to get your return back, right? So each marketing channel has a different cash conversion cycle. I think well, actually email is different, but let's say you're doing direct mail, it's about a 4-month cash conversion cycle, right? So if you spend $1,000 one month, you won't see your profits until 4 months later, at least, right? So if you're only spending $3,000 for one month, you're not giving your mail channel to freaking flourish and to build leads and to build rapport, right? Because on average, it takes about 3 to 4 letters for a seller to feel comfortable calling you. So you need to give it a chance to, give you guys returns, right? And if you're spending all your money in one month and you're spending it on 3, 4 different market channels, you're never going to get a deal. So you might as well commit to one lead marketing channel and get really good at it and then make money off it, right? So I have these returns here. So you should scale a marketing channel if you hit these numbers, right? So if you're doing cold calls, you need to hit a 4 times return before you can decide that you should put more money into it. And I'll give you an example. So let's say you spend $10,000 on cold calling, and that's with your dialers, your virtual assistants, and your data, right? If you're spending $10,000 a month, You want to be able to get $40,000 in revenue before you decide to increase that budget to a higher amount, right? So $40,000, that's like four deals. So if you're spending 10 grand a month on cold calling, you need to get at least four deals back. And if you're doing that, then you can look at your team, look at what's going on, and you can decide that you're going to spend more. Does that make sense, everybody? Can you guys give me a woo, like a Ric Flair thing, or you guys already know all this stuff? Okay. Remember, guys, please ask questions. Please drop woos in the chat because I'm just talking and I don't know if you guys are learning. I don't know if you guys are enjoying this. Keep me hyped up here so I can keep talking forever. So I've been talking for 30 minutes, but I want to keep going forever, right? So, big thing, right? So let's say, let's use a different example. What's the best way to find accurate leads? So I personally like county courthouse record data, right? Because you can get it for free. You can, like, if you have $0 to your name, you can get it for free. So Tim, yo, what's up, Ken? So Tim, how are you able to get accurate email addresses? So there's two different ways. So everyone knows that I pay for data. So I pay a company called Data Syndicate, but also if you guys have data, there's different skip tracing websites that you can spend money on. And the number one website that I can recommend is Smart Skip. Is Phil, is that right? Smart Skip? I think it's Smart Skip. I think he's Yep, Smart Skip. So Phil confirmed. So Smart Skip is like 15 cents per skip. It's really expensive for skip tracing, but my God. So I don't know if you guys saw my Instagram story from 3 days ago that I was in Louisville and I found a foreclosure deal. We got under contract. That was a skip, Smart Skip lead. So basically, we got a foreclosure lead. Nobody was home, right? Nobody was home. It was vacant, abandoned, and then we actually Smart Skipped it. Batch skip is pretty good depending on what market you're in. So data, it depends on where you're at, right? So I don't personally like batch data for my market, right? So it just really depends. There's also free skip tracing websites like cyberbackgroundcheck.com. There's also what's the other one? True People Search, but that's like that's just free data. So if it's free, it's probably not as good in my opinion. But Smart Skip is pretty good. How do you nurture, set up your sales process for nurturing leads? Okay, don't worry. We're gonna cover all this stuff. We're gonna cover all this stuff. Cool. What do you think of Spokio? I don't even know what Spokio is, my guy, to be honest. Are you a partner of Sub 2? I'm a Sub 2 student. Yes, I'm a part of the community. Okay. Does everybody feel comfortable with marketing? I don't want to go deep dive because I know you guys signed up for a sales training. Cool. Will a recording be available after this? The call have to drop soon. I will certainly try to send a recording. The last time I did one of these trainings, someone took it and started selling it as a course. So I try not to send recordings out. Okay, cool. We're now in the craziness of that we signed up for, right? We signed up for sales and acquisitions. And here's the reasons why you're probably not doing more deals, right? You don't have an onboarding process. So And this is not just for your employees, this is for yourself, right? People forget that you're the first employee of your company. Well, technically, if you're by yourself, you don't have a company, but this is the very beginning. You need to onboard yourself. And we're going to go through deep today on what our onboarding process looks like when we bring on a new acquisition manager, right? There's no accountability. We talked about this KPIs and metrics. Tracking all these things gives you accountability. So you can look at your data, right? If you want to be a wholesaler and you're cold calling and you look back on your data and it says that you only made 10 dials this week, what does that mean? That tells you you're not putting in the work. That means you're not putting in the accountability and the time to get good at sales and to be good at your business, right? This is a tracking metric for your accountability and to make smarter decisions with data, right? Without tracking this information, you cannot make any decisions, right? Without data, you are making gut feeling checks, right? Like you just feel like this is a good decision, and that's really never a good case. You're not using a hiring process. You're just probably asking Facebook groups or posting on social media saying that you're trying to find somebody, right? Who's guilty of this? There's a community that most of us are a part of, and you see a lot of people posting that we're looking for a acquisition manager. And you take any person that has a breath that says they want a cold call, right? That's not the way to do it. Okay. How many people record your calls? Does anybody record your own phone calls? Let me know. Brian, good. Better record it. Steph or Steven, Tiff, yes. Jessica, yes. That's a must. Wiley, yes, unfortunately. Well, that's good though. That's good. If you listen to your calls and you feel like you're not doing well, then you know what to improve on, right? And we'll go over a very important thing. We'll go over today on why it's important to record your calls and how I actually grade my seller or grade my acquisition managers so they get better every single day. Okay. And yes, Tiffany, we have to review film, right? This is like the NFL. This is like the NBA, right? We talked about the NBA earlier. If you guys aren't Philadelphia Eagles fans for the NFL, I want you guys to jump off the Zoom right now because I don't want to talk to you anymore. Okay. So we're Super Bowl champs. So if you bring on an acquisition manager and your AKA closer, I put the word closers in quotes because if you're not closing at least 5 deals, you're not really a closer, right? Um, it is the industry standard to have one of your acquisition managers to be able to close at least 5 deals, and that's including yourself. So if you guys cannot consistently close 5 deals, right, either from you or you hire somebody, like you're in a world of hurt, right? And we usually do like a 3 month, 60, 30, 60, 90-day expectations. And by the time they hit their 90-day expectations, they should be closing 3 to 5 deals a month. And the reason why they're not closing deals is because there's no clear step-by-step process and you guys are just winging it, right? How many of you guys call sellers with a generic script you found online on YouTube or something? Or you just call sellers and you're like, yo, what's up, man? Like, what's got you thinking about selling, bro? Right? You guys don't have a process. And without a process, it's not replicatable. Dude, you're 25 and burned now, bro. I'm 32. Okay. Another problem is a lot of you guys are just like doing the low ball cash offer MAO times 70% minus renovations, like you got to figure out what the solution is or what the problem is with the seller and figure out a creative solution with them. Okay. And we'll go deeper into it. What you need and why you need detailed SOPs, you need step-by-step procedures and why we just talked about it. We need step-by-step because it needs to be predictable and it needs to be repeatable, right? You cannot train somebody if you don't have a structure. So you can teach people all you want. You can have like really great conversations. Some people are more natural at talking to people than not, right? So I have an acquisition manager that's really shy and at first he was getting pounded on the phones, but with a script or with a framework, right? So I would like to stay away from the word script, but more framework. You can make anybody successful in this business, right? And because you have a, replicatable system, you can train and you can copy people, right? And the process is why you need it is because it's teachable. If you're not teaching someone the skills, then you can't scale. So if you have a replicatable system, a sales framework, you can give it to all your acquisition managers and there's some consistency. And then because if you have a framework, you can grade your acquisition managers using that framework, right? If your guys are just willy-nilly calling people and having just normal conversation and winging it, how can I grade you? How can you grade your teammates, right? And without further ado, I'm going to go through the sales framework. Can you guys see all this here? I'm like jumping from screen to screen. I'm not a webinar guy, so like I'm not good with technical stuff. Cool. So this is kind of like the frame that we kind of follow this path, right? So you get a new lead in here and you do a qualification call. And don't worry, guys, I'm literally gonna go through every one of my scripts today. Okay. Like if you guys stick with me to the end, I'm literally going to walk you step by step. So you're gonna do a qualification call, you're gonna do the intro, you're gonna set expectations. Wait, hold on. I don't know what's going on here. You're gonna do all these things. This is one script. And then basically, if they're motivated, yes or no. If they're not motivated, you're going to say, hey, we got all this information and just seems like we're just not a good fit. and just see if you can work something out, and then you're going to go instantly to the unqualification. Because the reason why I say this is because how many times you talk to a seller for 45 minutes and you realize that you just wasted 45 minutes and it wasn't a deal? Yeah, George is like LOL, right? It freaking sucks. So you got to realize real quick, and I'll show you the qualification script, what we use to kind of go through it real quick, and then you'll realize that real quick in the first like 10 minutes that that person's not a really good fit, and you can kind of move on to the next seller, right? If they're a good fit, you go through the whole process and you realize that you're good to go. You're going to say, I think we're a good fit. I'm going to do underwriting to figure out if this is the right what your property qualifies for, and then you're going to set an appointment with them to go over the offer call. So we do not do one call closes on my team. I know a lot of people take pride in one call closes, but I just don't do that, right? Because I feel pressure to underwrite. I do all these different. This gives you the opportunity to hang up the phone, go through an underwriting process, and figure out what the best deal is for you, right? This gives you a break. This gives you a chance. How far does Edwin take the call in the process? He cold calls and then qualifies in the same call before booking? Yeah, so he takes the call. So he's a cold caller, right? And then he passes it to either Rob or myself, the acquisition manager, and we will do like the actual process, right? So Edwin's doing the qualification. He's doing the initial qualification call. We do the rest. So your acquisition manager, you should not be passing it to a closer. Your acquisition manager is the closer, right? So there's a lot of different a lot of different companies use multiple people in the pipeline, and it gets really confusing for the seller. Like, imagine you have a cold caller, you give it to an acquisition manager that does a process call, and then you get a closer on there to like give the offer. Like it's just too much. But you set the appointment, you create calendar invites, and you have automated text messages. I even have the text messages for you in here, right? All these different automations for you to like remind the seller that they have an appointment, right? So let's go over the qualification script here. So this is one of the scripts here. Do I need to zoom in? Is this okay? Is this big enough for you guys? Okay, cool. So we're in the middle of changing this intro because it's a little blocky, right? So, but basically what we're trying to do is, if you guys haven't heard of Jeremy Miner, I'm also a Jeremy Miner student. So I'm learning the process of NEPQ, which is more emotional based questions. And the big thing is, in the very beginning of the call, people are doing the same thing over and over again, right? Hey, this is Tim. How are you doing today? Right? It's very salesy. It brings the seller's defenses up instantly. You're like, oh my God, another person calling, which is another problem with bulk data, is if there's bulk data involved, then they are most likely getting calls from 10 to 15 people, right? It's absolutely terrible. So what you want to do, like what we're trying to do is we're trying to change it up a little bit, where if we come upon somebody that's, if we're doing county courthouse record data, we kind of say, hey, I'm trying to see if you can help me out here. I'm looking for the homeowner of 123 Main Street. And we open up with, hey, can you help me out with something? Like it's different. It's breaking the frame. It's breaking the traditional sales defense of a seller. Instead of saying, hey, Rick, my name's Tim. How you doing? Like, first off, you don't really care how the person's doing, right? Like, how many of you guys say, like, how are you doing and actually care about how they're doing? Because honestly, they know you don't care. Like, have you ever walked in a car salesman or car dealership and you're trying to buy a car and the car salesman's like, hey, buddy, how are you doing, man? The weather's real nice, right? And you know that they're just buttering you up to be able to, like, screw you over on a car, right? Like, how many have you guys experienced that before? 100%, right? So that's how they feel when we call them. So you just got to get into the point, right? Get to the point. Hey, can you help me out here? I'm trying to buy your house, right? Just be real with them. But the most important thing in a phone call, yeah, take me out to dinner. The most important thing is setting expectations. The reason why most of you guys are getting ghosted at the end of a phone call is because you're not setting expectations, right? This is a quick way to get them to set expectations, and a way we do it is great. So what I would like to do is take 10 to 15 minutes so that I can ask you more specific questions about the property, like roof, the furnace, things like that. After that, I'm going to talk to my partners and they will let me know what the property qualifies for. All I ask is that you're able to make a confident yes or no decision. Cool. Is that cool? Yes. If it's something that you would like to move forward with, amazing. If not, no big deal. You're not going to hurt my feelings, right? Why did I do that? I'm telling you that I'm going to take 10 minutes of your time on this phone call because how many times have you gotten a phone call from a telemarketer and you're like, oh my God, like, why am I on this damn phone and how long am I going to be on here? Does anybody shop at Costco? Anybody? Let me know. You guys are Costco people there today? Yeah, it's a freaking war zone every time I go there. It's insane. It's insane. Okay, when you go through Costco, you have the AT&T sales guy that just like hounds you while you're like going through like the technology section of Costco. So if you guys are true Costco fans, like you guys know that the technology side is on your right, got the $1.25 hot dogs to your left, right? And these AT&T guys are like, "Yo, what's up, man? You got what kind of internet you got?" And yeah, Tiffany's like trying to run through the freaking store, right, to avoid these guys. And how many times have you talked to this person and you're like, "Yeah, bro, like just take my number or give me your card and I'll call you back." And you never call them back? That's exactly what sellers do when they're like, "Oh, I got to think about it. Oh, I got to talk to my wife. Oh, I don't have time to talk to you right now. Can you call me back?" And you never get a hold of them ever again. And the reason why is you're that AT&T salesperson that's just randomly calling someone on a Saturday morning. You didn't set any expectations. And we use certain words on purpose because we want to prime them for what's going to happen next. I'm going to talk to my partner after I ask you questions so we can see what your property qualifies for. That means I'm not going to give you an offer today. I'm not going to get, well, not today, but I'm not going to give you an offer at this very phone call like everybody else is trying to do. I need to see what my property or what my people, what my financial folks can actually give you money. Okay. We call on Saturdays. We call on Saturdays until like 2 p.m. And then we kind of stop calling because statistics that we have or data that we ran was like, after 2 p.m. on a Saturday, not really good, right? Not really good. So, so all I ask is that you're able to make a confident yes or no decision. That's a big thing. And I usually pause right here. I usually pause right after this sentence just to see what they say. Because if they say maybe or yeah, and they don't give you a confident yes or no, they have some reservations, and I like to attack that right there on the spot. Right? If they say maybe or no, I'm like, no, what do you mean by that? Or maybe I just mirror them and I just see what they say. Right? Maybe they'll say like, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm dealing with this thing and this thing, and then now you have a gateway into having a conversation with them. Okay. The urgency factor. You just want to make sure that there's some urgency. A lot of the case, if you're calling bulk data, you're not going to get the urgency factor. So you're going to have to just move on to motivation. So we do urgency, motivation, and then ballpark price. That's kind of how we determine how we qualify people. And if they don't have something urgent, then you need to go into motivation, right? Because if they don't meet motivation, then they're not gonna, you're not gonna get a deal, right? You're gonna have a 40-minute conversation about someone like just thinking about selling, and that's just not really conducive of your time, right? Especially if you guys are working full time like I am, you just don't have time to talk to someone for 45 minutes. So motivation is probably the most important part of the call. So you're going to deep dive this thing. This is where you spend like 20 minutes of the call. And it's so funny when you ask someone in the very beginning, can I take 10 minutes of your time? And you end up getting them for like 40 minutes, right? Has anybody experienced that? That's literally clockwork. It's literally how it's done. You ask them for 10 minutes of your time. Does anybody follow the School of Hard Knocks? That guy who goes up to billionaires and asks them for advice. Oh my God, you need to watch that. So George, if you don't know the School of Hard Knocks, you definitely have to go watch him. He goes up to like billionaires and he's like, "Hey, can I take a minute of your time?" Right? No one doesn't have a minute of time, right? Like if you say you don't have a minute of time, you're a douche. You're an absolute douche. So You come over there and you're like, hey, can I get a minute of your time? This is what School Hard Knocks does. And he comes over there and he asks them all these different questions. And it turns into 5 minutes. That's exactly what happens when you talk to a seller. I'm just going to take 5 to 10 minutes of your time. And it turns into a 40-minute conversation because you are a normal person. You're having a real conversation, right? So, how do you get motivation? What's got you thinking about selling the property? It's a very easy question to kind of work through. It's the most basic question. And then based off what they say, you want to ask impact questions, right? So situation, what's got you thinking about it? And then you want to ask multiple impact questions based off their answer. So an example of this, hey, what's got you thinking about selling? Well, I want to downsize. And you're like, mirroring, right? I'll use mirroring here. Downsize? What do you mean by that? And just let them explain the situation. Never assume what the situation is, right? It makes you, what is that? When you assume, it makes an ass out of you and me, right? Because like I had a situation where I asked the seller, hey, you know, why are you downsizing? Like, is your kids moving out? Like, are you becoming an empty nester? And then the lady was like, oh, I never have kids, or I couldn't have kids. And I'm like, cool, I'm a horrible person, right? And the conversation went dead cold. So don't ever assume. Let the seller give you the answer. Okay. Yeah, Jessica's laughing, but dude, it's brutal, right? So, if you ever been some of my live trainings that I do in person, I'll tell you all these different weird things that I've encountered, right? Like there's a video I posted on Instagram the other day about the cuckoo clock, right? That ended up being a huge problem for them because they had a cuckoo clock from Germany, and it was like a $10,000 deal, and she said no to every investor because deep down she had that problem where she was like, I can't get rid of this cuckoo clock. So you got to make sure that you're asking situations, and as you're going through motivation, you can actually find out different things like, hey, this was my dad's house and he passed away. So what does that tell you? This could be a potential probate opportunity, right? Oh, like, I'm so sorry you lost your father. Like, I can't imagine how that's been. Have you, do you understand like the probate process, or like have you started the probate process? And they're like, I don't even know what that is. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, probate process is usually, the process where if someone passes away and there's no will, there's no trust, you have to go through a legal process to get the property legally passed over to the inheritance, right? So that is an educational portion of it where you can provide value to the seller. So the seller tells you that someone passed away and they don't even know what the probate process is. Well, that's where you insert yourself with value. And that's how you truly build rapport. Building rapport is not asking them how the Philadelphia Eagles are. Rapport is not asking them how the weather is. Rapport is asking genuine conversational questions to open them up and to learn more about them. And then ultimately, when you learn stuff about them, there's going to be problems that you unravel that you're able to solve. So if you guys have not read the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, this is a huge learning point for me, right? When I read that book, is it's called the Black Swan Method. And the Black Swan Method, if you guys don't know, is yeah, everybody give me a woo in the chat, right? I think this warrants it. There you go. So the black well, I just lost myself. I've been thinking about too much about Ric Flair. So the Black Swan Method is basically when you uncover a problem that the seller doesn't even know that they have in their mind. So me going through the process, she tells me her dad passed away. She didn't even know she had a problem, and I literally am going to solve that problem after I gave her the problem, right? Who do you think she's going to sell the house to? She's going to sell it to me like 9 out of 10 times, right? So that's the process. There's different motivating categories that meet the, situation or meets the motivation category so you can move forward with the call. Financial, emotional, spiritual, physicality, I'm sick, or, I'm in a wheelchair, I can't go up the second floor. You name it, I've heard it all. Divorce, relationships, holding them back from reaching a goal, like maybe, they need the money to do XYZ. I knew a guy that literally, he had four houses that he had, and he wanted to sell two of them, not because he was in distress, but he wanted extreme pleasure. What do I mean by that? He wanted to sell two of his houses that had max equity, so he had straight cash to the bank. He just wanted to go on a freaking 50-year-old bender in Las Vegas for a weekend. I kid you not. I was like, why do you want to sell? He goes, bro, I'm not kidding you. I just want to spend the weekend in Vegas and just go hard. And he's like, I'm 50 years old. I'm like, right on, dude. Let me see what I can qualify for, and then we'll give you the offer, right? So there's like insane things. You just got to figure out what they actually want. Dude, Lee, I don't even imagine if you went to Vegas, bro. Like, I didn't want to see that, dude. I didn't want to see that, bro. Um, but the biggest thing, right, is asking the seller what it would feel like to accomplish that goal. So it's always away from pain or toward pleasure, right? So pleasure is going to Vegas, and away from pain is getting away from a foreclosure, right? Those are two big examples. And you want to ask them something at the very end. You're recapping their motivation. It's like, hey, what do you feel it would feel like to, be able to sell your house, get the $25,000 arrears gone, we can give that money to your mom because that's what you want to do, and you can take care of your mother because that's what you said you wanted to do. How do you think that would feel that if we can get you an offer like that, right? Paint that picture after you get all that stuff. And then you're going to repaint that picture later on as we go down the script. Okay? Is this valuable, guys? Are you guys learning some stuff today? Okay. Yes, sir. There we go. Ric Flair. Let's go. Okay, so the property condition stuff, I have a whole checklist in school. I have a step-by-step thing that you can kind of go through. This is the most tedious part of the phone call, but you can make it fun, right? You can make it fun and be like, okay, this is the really boring part, Miss Sherry. Is it okay that I go through these different, questions about the house and, blah, 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 right? And you can be like, okay, last question, how's the roof, right? And if the seller's in a big rush, only focus on the big things: roof, furnace, AC, and foundation, right? Focus on the big stuff and move on. Oh, and also ask if they have city or sewer water, but the checklist is in the school community, so you can get access to that. Roadblocks. This is what something people always forget to do. So they go through the motivation, they do a good job doing all this stuff, finding out what the issue is, they find the condition of the property, and then they instantly go to the offer call. And how many times have you guys gotten a contract and then it blows up in your face 30 days from now when you find out something bad is happening at the title? Has that ever happened to you guys where you guys get something under contract and then you can't sell it? I know me and Rebecca are going through that right now. We have a deal in Houston that we got a flex to do an ovation on, right? So there's always going to be a problem. Forgot to ask if the wife was on board. Yes. So this is a big thing, right? So let's say you're talking to Randy, a guy named Randy, and you go through the whole process with them, you find out all these different things, and then you find out at the very end, you go to the phone call, and then you're like, cool, are you ready for an offer call? And he's like, oh, wait, I gotta talk to my wife. And you're like, oh my God, I effed that up really bad. Because what you want to do is you go through the process and then you're like, hey, can I just ask you a quick question? Is there anyone that would be upset if you didn't speak to before you made this decision to sell? And they'll go, no, it's just me. But you always want to double confirm. You always want to ask them again. And there's a ton of different ways to do it. I personally, it's my personality to do it this way. You can do it, you can ask them like, hey, just want to make sure that, there's no wife or anything like that, blah, blah, blah. And they'll say, no, it's just me, or no, it's my aunt, it's my realtor, whatever. I usually do a little joke. So I ask, hey, is there anybody else that you need to talk to? And he's like, no. Okay, cool. Haha. Like, no crazy ex-girlfriend or wife gonna call if you decide to sell this? And he's like, nope, just me. I'm like, cool. Time to move on, right? But the big thing is you always want to confirm there's somebody, because there's an example that I had in one of my YouTube videos where somebody said, "Oh, I need to talk to my aunt because my aunt's a realtor and she would know." And I'm like, "Oh my God, like a realtor? Like this deal's dead, right? I hate dealing with agents." But what you want to do is before you get on the offer call, it's like, "Hey, is there an opportunity that your aunt can get on the phone with me now, or will your aunt be available when we give you the offer call?" Right? You want to make sure that that person's either on the call, the process call. I actually put them on the offer call as well. Just depends on how you want to do it. But I actually enjoy having the agent on the phone while I'm doing the offer call because then we can just have the conversation right there on the spot. So enough about influencers. That probably makes sense, right? So timeline. This is a pretty simple script. You can read it here, but this is basically just, hey, we can close anytime you need. We can close fast. We can close later. Just let me know what works for you. This is a very big question as well, is other discomfort. So what I usually say is I like to just recap what we just talked about. Like, hey, you told me that you owe 25 grand. If we took care of that, we talked to your wife, we did all these things. Is there anything else holding you back from making a decision today? And this is the question that you get if you say it right with the right tonality and the right delivery, where you get the cuckoo clock story, where you get the I gotta, oh my God, I forgot. Like I always talk to my freaking aunt about things before do something crazy, right? It's like super crazy. Like this question is the one that you get all the weird scenarios out right there in the spot, right? This is a very, very important question. And then the money thing, this is a very, very important thing. So remember what I just said? I recapped all the bad stuff, 28,000. You need to talk to your wife. This would, save you money. Your credit score is going down because of the foreclosure. You want to do a brief recap and then you say, what do you feel is a fair price for your property? Because why do we say that? Do people make decisions logically or is it all emotional? All emotion, right? When you're thirsty, you say, it's a feeling, right? Oh, I feel like I need to drink some water. I feel thirsty. I feel thirsty, right? It's not, oh, haven't drank water in 6 hours today. I need to drink water. I haven't drank water in like 4 hours today, right? So that's just, that's all logic out the window, right? It's all emotional. So remember what I said in the beginning. You want to set expectations and you want to set expectations again. You want to set expectations for the next call. So what I usually do is, hey, do you have an email address that I can send you a packet, right? Like, hey, remember it's going to take me 30 minutes to underwrite this deal. We're going to get on the phone. I'm going to give you what your property qualifies for and tell you what it looks like to work with us, right? And then while they're waiting, we usually give them an email address. We get their email address so we can send them a company credibility packet of all the different deals that we've done, of all the different testimonials we've collected. And then if you guys have a website, you can share them your website as well if they don't feel comfortable sharing your email. Nobody does this, bro. I'll tell you right now, just like how I said, no one emails people, nobody sends a credibility packet. And then why do I also get their email address to send them credibility packet? Now I can follow up with them with an email address that works. If they ghost me for some reason and they're not picking up their calls, I'm going to email them while I'm waiting for an appointment. Let's say your appointment is a day from now, 2 days from now. What do you keep doing? You email them once a day with more value. Hey, remember it's Tim from Top Gap Homes. Just wanted to give you some additional resources prior to our phone call. You see what I'm saying? You see how we chain things together over and over again? So you just, and you feel comfortable, they feel comfortable giving you an email address versus you just saying, hey, can I have your email address? And they're like, no, right? Like I talked to my acquisition manager about this. He was like, dude, they're not giving me my email address because I'm like, dude, you sound like a salesman. Like, hey, let me, by chance, can I get your email address? I want to send you a packet about our company, right? George knows my acquisition manager, right? He knows my acquisition manager. So, or actually, Edwin's my lead manager. So he knows what he's going through. He's training, he's learning all these different things, but you want to use that credibility packet. And I think we have a credibility packet in our school community for free as well. If I don't have it, I'll drop it in there for you guys as well. So you guys can copy our credibility packet. Okay. So, yep, this is what we just said. It's going to take me 30 minutes. All I ask is you're comfortable to make a yes or no decision, and then you schedule a time. So, you don't want to say, when are you free? Say, we will be available at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. Does any of time works for you? And they'll say yes or no, right? And then you schedule a time and you book a call. Cool. Does anybody have any questions? I just went through the qualification script really fast. No questions. Perfect. All good. All good. Okay, cool. So you brief or you schedule an appointment for the offer call and you go through the offer call. There's a whole nother script for it. You can it's in the school community. You can have that, right? Basically, what I want to do is when you do the script here, you do the hold on, I'm so zoomed in right now. Sorry guys, technical difficulties. So we'll do an offer call. Basically, this is like a, a preliminary thing to kind of set things up for the phone call, right? This basically explains what it looks like to work with us. And you'll see a lot of sellers when you do this that they actually tell you like, "Oh, no company that's called me actually wanted to explain what it looks like to work with us." Because remember, most people, if you don't like most people have only bought one house in their whole life, right? People forget this because we're around real estate investors 24/7. It's not normal to buy multiple houses a year or a month, whatever, right? Like it's not normal. So when you talk to these sellers, you got to remember that they've probably lived in this house for 10 plus years and this is the only house they bought. So the process of buying a house is very foreign, let alone an investor buying their house. So you want to be very transparent with what it looks like for them to work with you, and that makes them more comfortable prior to them making a decision with you. Does that make sense, guys? You got to explain the process. And you notice right here, summarize the motivation and summarize the roadblocks that they addressed. You want to bring up all the emotional baggage. I hate to say it, but this is how you get the deals done, is you bring up the emotions right here before you drop the bomb on the price, right? And this is the most important thing. You recap the whole thing and then you ask them, with that being said, your property qualifies for $124,600.34. You notice how weird that number was? Why do you think that number was weird? Why do you think that was very specific? Because it makes it seem like you've put a lot of thought into it. Yep, Brian's spot on. Oh, your house is worth $150,000. That just sounds like I just pulled a number out of a calculator. The weird number that I gave you is something that I thought about, something that I really tried my best to make it happen, make it work for you. It doesn't sound like an infomercial. $499.99. If you buy it right now, I'll give you $10,000 more, right? And when you give that price, you don't say a damn word. You don't say a damn word. Okay? You don't say a damn word. You let the seller fill in the gap. Let it sink in. Has anybody tried this technique with the seller before? Yo, Jonathan, what's up, bro? There's a thing with this, right? Where I actually there's a video in the community. You gotta watch it. It's in the course module where I ask him this price, and he literally it's like a 10-minute pause, bro. And I'm just like, "Are you still there with me? Are you still there?" And he's like, "Oh, I just can't," right? And I'm like, "Okay, like what would work? If I can get this approved, what would work?" Okay, does this all make sense, guys? You want to tie in the emotional stuff when you prep them for the offer. That's why we set up another offer call, right? We don't offer them right on the spot. I want to get my notes, right? When I'm waiting for that next call, like I'm remembering the notes, I'm prepping myself, right? And if you know that offer is really low, insert some tonality to it. With that being said, you know, I know you're looking for a different price, and I really try to stick my neck out there for you against my partners here. But your property qualifies for $153,500.33. Dead silence. Okay. You're on their side. You're against the seller. And I'm gonna bring in something real quick too for you guys. So we go through the this little module here. Okay. So you give the offer call and they say no because the price is too low, right? Do we ask their number in mind in our first offer number doesn't work? So remember, you want to try to get their number first in the first qualification call. So you kind of have an idea what's going on. What we usually do when we are calling sellers, right? So we do the offer call and we give the price. So you guys know what max allowable offer is, right? That's ARV times 70% minus renovations and then minus your assignment fee. So what we like to do is we go $40,000 less than the max allowable offer. So your max allowable offer is 100,000 to make a 10 grand assignment. We go 60 grand. We go 40 grand less. And it's going to be buck wild. Can someone type in the chat what the ARV formula is? I, I know there's some beasts in here, so you can type it in there for the chat. So basically, 40 grand less. And why? That gives you a chance to renegotiate, right? Because psychologically, if they wanted 100 grand and you gave them 100 grand, they would probably say, why was that so easy? Like maybe I could have gone higher, right? So what we do is, man, shit, like we really try to come up with a number. Ah, it's 60 grand, whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's the best we can do. And then you try to renegotiate. So he wants 100, you offered 60. So then you go, and George, yep, that's the equation. So you give 60 grand, he wants 100, and you're like, "Hey man, if I can get this approved by my partner, my financial partner here, what would work for you?" Now you're trying to get him to meet you in the middle. Cuz guess what? 100 grand, you're going to make 10 grand off that, right? And if you go the renegotiation status or style, what if he says, "You know what? I'll do it for 80 grand." And you're like, "Holy cow, I just made $20,000 of assignment fees just by asking that one question." Right? Give yourself a chance to make more money and to make them feel like you're winning or make them feel like they're winning in the negotiation. Because if you're like fighting, 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 boom, you get the 80 grand, boom, you're good to go, right? And we do a two times renegotiation. So we try to go up. Hey, it doesn't work. Hey, is there anything that we can do here? What's the best you can do? If it's still 100 grand, then we say, okay, no, he's not going to accept it. Once we do negotiations two times like that, then we pivot into what we call a novation agreement. Do you guys know what novations are? Or is that a little too advanced? Okay, novations are it's yeah, pretty much like a partnership, right? Like we usually say like our script is like, hey, okay, cool. So I talked to my partners, and there's actually a way to get you that 100,000, but it requires more access to your property. And they're like, well, what do you mean by that? It's like, well, we need to have access to, take pictures of the property. We want to list the property, and then we have to have investors, like some of our investor friends and partners, to go to the property to see if they can make a offer on the market, right? We call it our white glove service. Hey, this is a done for you program where we can give you the 100,000, but we need more access to the property, and it usually takes longer for you to get the money. Does that make sense? And they're like, blah, blah, blah. And you kind of negotiate, right? But you want to sell it. How we sell it is it's a white glove service done for you, and you can get a higher price. And sometimes when you tell them that and you're like, and you give them that option, they usually like, oh, I can't wait 2, 3 months. Like, let me just go with your cash deal at 80 grand. You're like, cool. I can have my TC send over the contract. Does that kind of make sense, guys? White glove service. That's a woo right there, right? Yeah, I have some friends that kind of say it's an equity protection program or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's too much. I was like, I don't really do that. Okay, so basically, once that's accepted and you're good to go, now you're going to send the contract, right? So let me go back to the slides here. I have not gone to the slides in a while, so let me see if I skipped anything. Yep, we're going to the contracts right now. Okay, now it's the contract phone call, right? So this is the contract or this is when you have an accepted offer and you're about to send the contract. So I do not send the contract. What I do is I say, well, I'm going to walk you through this whole process. This will take 5 to 10 minutes or however long you need. And I want to be on the phone with them before I send it. Because let's say, like, hey, I'm going to get on the phone with you at 5 p.m. and we're going to go to the contract together. I'm going to call him first. So now I'm on the phone. Hey, Rick, did you get our contract yet in the email? And obviously he's going to say no. because I didn't send it. But I wanted to make sure that I'm on the phone with him and not send him the email before I hop on the phone. So I'm gonna ask him, "Hey, did you get my offer?" And he's like, "No." So now I'm gonna send the offer right there on the spot. Cool. Now you got your offer. Hey, apologies for that, brother. Now I'm going to kind of go through the process, but I want to point out the six most important parts of the contract with you. And then you can take the time on your own to review the contract however you want to. Okay. No rush. I just want you to review it, and I'll be here on standby for you to go over some questions if you have any. Okay. Cool. Let's go through the six different important steps. So, this is a purchase agreement. This is our purchase agreement that we have. Number one is, hey, do I have the right property address listed? Yes. Cool. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Hey, for purchase price, remember it was $153,600.33, right? Yes, that's correct. Perfect. And this is the date that we plan to close escrow because you told me that you needed about 30 days. So I actually put the close of escrow no later than 19 July. Does that sound fair? Yes, perfect. Cool. We'll be closing at this title company. And I want to make sure that I have your information correct and spelled correctly. Did I spell your name correctly and your address? Okay, perfect. Next thing you want to go down, hey, this is the inspection contingency that I talked about. Remember when I told you that we actually need access to your property to take pictures of it for our inspectors? That's where the inspection is going to actually happen during this period. And if you scroll down here to page, 3, this actually breaks down the entire process of why we need access to your property. So you're being 100% transparent before they read it and ask you the question. You're literally overcoming their objections. Correct? Like, does that make sense? How many times do you send a contract, you just let them read it, and then they're like asking you 1,000 questions, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to freaking sign it, or like, hey, this thing says it's assignable, right? So I do talk about that as well. I talk about how it's assignable because I don't know if I'm gonna buy it or one of my businesses are gonna buy it. That's why I'm very transparent with them, right? Then you go down and like, hey, like that's the big ticket items other than at the very bottom where it takes your signature, right? And it also needs an initial on the bottom. Cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to mute my phone here so I can pretend that I'm not here. And you can review it and take as long as you want. I'm just here for questions. Is that okay? Perfect. You mute your phone and just let them read it. You do not let them go. You're on the phone with them, you do not let them go. Okay? Right? You have to understand the agreement because if you don't know the agreement, then like they feel uncomfortable. They're like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And also never say the word contract. Contract is a word that brings up a defense, right? Oh, a contract. I don't want to sign a contract. Always say like purchase agreement, right? Hey, I'm gonna send you the agreement, or I'm gonna purchase, or send you the purchase agreement, right? Something that's not a contract, because contract sounds very negative. Okay, cool. So, management. Onboarding is so important. So, we're shifting gears away from the sales and we're going to talk about how you bring on a team member, right? Onboarding is so important. You want to make sure that when you bring on somebody new that you have training, that you bring up all these different notes, these different tactics to help you out. Like think about it this way. Like if you're brand new to a job, who works like a corporate job or worked in a cubicle farm? I have, right? And there's like an onboarding process where you have to go through the different, HR, finance, all these different people, right? It's the same thing with acquisition managers for your business. Don't just take some random dude from a community or from a, whatever, posting on Facebook and you say, hey, cool, I'm gonna give you 1,000 records, like just cold call. Like, dude, you have to like give them the basics. You have to give them what I'm giving you right now. You have to educate them. You have to get them prepared because or else they're set up for failure and then who really pays the price? It's not them because they were at the point where they were when they met you and now they're just going to work for somebody else, but you were the one that brought them on, gave them the data, and you still don't make any money. So you're the one that's really in pain, right? So make sure you have an onboarding process. And we actually, for our 2-day workshop, whoever comes to the workshop, we actually onboard you how we onboard our team. That's like the most important thing about it. We take you through the actual process. Management, number two, daily huddles. right? Acquisition manager and our acquisition team, we huddle for like 30 minutes at least every day, right? So obviously, a lot of you guys are busy. So my partner does a lot of this, and I come on the weekly one on ones. So you see the weekly one on one with the acquisition team. I do the weekly one on ones, right? Because I don't have a lot of time. But the daily huddles, you want to cover gratitude and your metrics, your KPIs that you're tracking to keep you guys on track. And then we always do some sort of training slash warm up before you call. Because how many guys, be honest with me, be real with me, how many guys cold call and then you cold call for like 2, 3 days and then you stop for a week and then you try to call again? Be real with me. Anybody in here like that? Yep, yep, yep. Okay, couple people guilty. Who else? Anybody else out there? It's okay. Not woo. Not woo, okay. Right? So when you call again, don't you feel awkward? Don't you feel like you're stumbling on your words, you're stuttering and all these different things? Trust me, I'm like that as well. If I don't call sellers, or if I'm not making a YouTube video or whatever and I'm not calling sellers, I get really awkward, right? I'm cold. So what we do is daily training, reminders of the process, remindings of the sales framework, right? You want to stay on top of it. Jeremy Miner talks about this all the time, right? The coach of NEPQ. He says sales is a perishable skill, right? Sales is a perishable skill. So if you're not working on it every day, you're going to have some problems, right? So, and daily gratitude, the reason why it hasn't born, you guys know, if you guys are cold callers, you know how shitty cold calling is, right? Cold calling is really rough on the freaking mind and it's really rough on the soul. So you need to have some gratitude. You need to have, a good feeling, some wins and gratitude, right? Talk about the wins, always praise your team. And if you guys have a bigger team as you grow, remember, we have daily metrics we cover. So we can kind of cover the quarterly bonuses. So we do quarterly bonuses. So if we're close on a quarterly bonus and you talk about it in your daily huddles, guys, we are 2 deals away from the quarterly bonus. What do you think your employees are going to do? They work 9 to 5 or whatever it is. They're going to stay the extra hour to call the last bit of leads that they have. They want to make that team bonus. Everybody wants to make the extra two, three, $4,000 that quarter, right? You'd be crazy not to want to make that money. And you know that you're only a deal or two away. So they're going to put in the extra effort for that, right? That's why we have these meetings. Okay. Weekly one-on-one acquisition team. So remember, I preach being a very lean team, right? You don't need a gargantuan team to be financially free, right? We do quite a few deals and you literally only need to make, like, can you imagine making 50, 60 grand a month net profit? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you really need a giant team of like 100 people? Like, I personally don't want to make, $1 million, $2 million a year wholesaling, right? There's other things that you can do with your time, right? But I like to do a one-on-one touch point with my acquisition team, right? Because you want to make them feel like they're progressing or they have a career plan, right? So that's very important to be like, hey, this is your goal this quarter to make your revenue goals. Because remember, they need to make money too. So if you guys don't have goal setting meetings with your acquisition manager, then they're kind of just going to be floating around and they're not staying on track, right? Because they want to make money too. Does this all make sense, guys? You got to treat your acquisition manager like it's a business. So we're talking about the onboarding process here. So you guys are getting a lot of information today, so I apologize, but I want you guys to kind of understand what it takes to develop a sales team and how you can optimize your current marketing that you're spending, right? So if you guys are having 10 leads a month, like 10 leads, your job is to convert 70% of them, right? You want to convert 70% of them. So, but if you're only closing 1 out of 10 of those opportunities, you're obviously only going to make this much money, right? So that's what I'm saying, with a proper sales system, a proper operations, a proper funnel, you can convert more of the opportunities that you currently have without spending more money. Okay. So this is what our onboarding process looks like. You got day one. I'm virtual, so I don't have like a desk or computer or whatever like that, but um, I'm virtual, so we got to do a ton of HR paperwork, right? So, the 1099 or the W-2 form if you have a full-time employee. And I always buy my acquisition managers a brand new headset. So if they're calling without a headset, I'm like, I'm gonna buy you on an Amazon one to you, 2-day ship, right? It's a business expense and it's way more better with a headset. especially if they're calling 8 hours a day, right? We like to give them a day by day plan for the employee, right? So Edwin, if you guys know who my acquisition manager, we did not do this for him because I've known him for a long time, but I need to put him through an onboarding process. But everyone that we bring on new will have an onboarding process, right? You want to give them a day to day plan for the next 2 weeks so they know what it's like. So we give them training, we give them CRM training, right? We want to prep them before they get on the phones and get wrecked, right? You want to prepare them as much as possible. Okay. 60 or 30, 60, 90-day expectations. I talked about this in the very beginning. We want to give them expectations. So in 30 days, you want to get at least one deal on their contract. And in your 60 days, you want to get two under contract and close one, right? So you want to make $10,000. And then for your 90-day expectation, you should be getting 2 to 3 deals under contract, right? That's our progression plan, and that's what our expectations are. And if you don't set expectations, you can't, correct them and you can't punish them, right? So you want to be able to set expectations up front. We also have a structured pay scale and ascension. So if you have a new employee, how many of you guys work a W-2 right now? Is there a lot of W-2s here? Tristan, can you repeat those, please? Expectations. I'm sorry. Oh, 30-day expectations. You want to get one deal under contract. That's your first 30 days. Your 60-day expectation is to get another deal or two under contract and close one. Because remember, most of your deals where you get under contract takes about 30 days to close, right? So you got to put that into account. Your 90-day expectations, you want to get at least 2 to 3 deals under contract. So you're fully trained, you're fully ramped up, and now you're crushing, right? And another thing while we're talking about this is if you're not tracking your KPIs or metrics and your acquisition manager is not closing deals, but you're not getting connections or you're not getting good leads. So that's not the acquisition manager's fault. And that's what you have to track. Now, if they're getting a lot of process calls, which we'll talk about, let's say you get 10 process calls and you only got one offer, that's a sales problem. That's not a lead problem, that's a sales problem. And you have to correct your acquisition manager. But I'm going to go back to my question. For people that have a W 2, right? How many of you guys feel like sometimes you're like, I don't know what my boss wants. I don't know what it takes for me to get a pay raise. I don't know like what it takes for me to get a pay raise. So we do that for you at front. You come in as a lead manager. If you close 3 to 4 deals, then we'll talk to you about being an acquisition manager. After you close more deals as an acquisition manager, you're going to be the senior acquisition manager. After that, maybe one day you'll be the sales manager. Because remember, you want to leave your business, right? Remember the 4 steps of a business or 4 phases of a business? You want to be out of your business, right? So eventually you need to start training people and making them leaders within your organization. So without a pay scale and ascension plan for your employees, how are you going to do that? And also, who wants to be a lead manager forever? There's no pay raise, there's no pay scale, right? You got to give them an ascension plan so they have something to look forward to, a goal to strive for, money to be made, right? You need to make a plan, right? 5 day or day 5 to 10 for our onboarding process. We do all of our stuff on Loom, right? So we do all of our stuff on Loom. So how to do the CRM, how to, what's our ideal customer profile, what's the sales psychology, how to do all the scripts. So basically this training that I'm giving you today, it's been an hour and a half. So thank you so much for sticking with me so far. But imagine just 10 hours to 20 hours of training on Looms that your acquisition manager has to go through. That's what you want. So you want to build out all these different things, right? What we do for our workshop is we actually give you all these videos to help you onboard, right? So that's a really big thing that we're trying to do here. Okay, let's do the most critical tool here. Your dang phone, guys. Your dang phone, okay? So your phone system is the biggest important thing. Either using ready mode, either using go high level, either if you're using your dang cell phone here, right? It's your most important system. Um, do you guys know what click to call is? Do you guys use dialers or anything like that? Like type a one in the chat if you're using go high level or ready mode. And then let me know if you're not doing it. I use follow up boss. No, I haven't. I use Podio with smartphone, cold callers with ready mode. Yo, I hate Podio. Oh my god. I used to use Podio. REI reply. I use built. Could I use Built? Yeah, you could use Built. Ready mode on top of Google Voice. Podio is the Craigslist of CRMs. Yeah, dude. So like I was a Podio guy. Oh my God, dude. I hate Podio. I don't want to talk shit about Podio, but it's so old. Like it's like a dinosaur. Go High Level has like all the automations easily done and all this stuff, and like the AI integration is like unreal. If you guys aren't, I could do a whole Zoom on AI integration too. It's like insane. Manually calling, I've been using a dialer and it kept mark as spam calls. Yeah, that's well, you need to recycle your phone numbers. Got to start somewhere and level. Absolutely. So click the call. If you guys don't know, is if you're using a CRM, you'll have. Do you guys want me to show you my CRM? I don't know. I might break my Zoom, honestly. But when you're on when you're on your CRM and you click on a seller's name, you can actually click them and instantly call them, right? So that's what click the call is. And then also setting up your systems where if you have people that you have to call and it's in a follow-up sequence, then they'll pop up in the right list and your acquisition manager can just go down the line all the way down. And Tristan's right. Ready mode IQ is amazing because it keeps your numbers clean. Um, but remember, with the DNC stuff, I don't know how all this stuff is going to shake out. My business model is a little more, I'm a little more risk adverse, so I don't really care if I get reported. But yes, we use Ready Mode IQ and actually you get emails when somebody reports you, which is really cool. So then we just take the phone number out. So we buy like 20, 30 phone numbers at a time and we just run through lists, right? But okay, so when you have a CRM or when you have ready mode, right, it actually records your phone call. So that's why it is important to have it. If you don't have the money to spend, this money or whatever, it was Lee, kick him out. If you don't have money to spend on a CRM, have like an iPhone or something or a poopy iPhone. Like you don't need to have your actual phone because if you're calling with your phone, you can have like a burner phone record you and you can listen to your phone calls that way. But Ready Mode records phone calls and H or CRMs record phone calls, and you need to record them in order to do sales audits. And remember what I told you, um, if you don't do sales audits, you're screwed, right? And remember I said repeatable processes allows you to grade your calls, right? So this is the script, the intro, the setting expectations, the motivation. Did you ask questions? Did you dig deeper on it? And this is how you quickly listen to your acquisition manager's phone calls or listen to your own phone calls and grade yourself. Did you ask better questions? Hey, they said that they want to downsize. What do you mean by that? Right? What do you mean by that? And then, what's their answer? Oh, kids moving out. Okay, management features. These are little more advanced things here. Multi-line dialers, that's your ready mode stuff, right? That's your ready mode, multi-line dialer. Multi-line dialer is basically a software that allows you to call multiple phone numbers at once, right? So you'll call three numbers at the same time. When someone connects, it'll hang up the other two and you'll talk to the person that connects with you. And you can connect with anybody in the chat that uses ready mode actively. Okay. Does this all make sense? Does this make sense about cold calling and systems and all these things? I know a lot of you guys aren't using them, but I wanted to allow you guys to see this. Would you recommend RMs? Can you type out what RM is or RVM? What is RVM? Oh, ringless voicemail? No, I don't do that. I actually physically leave a voicemail. Like I just voicemail them, right? So what I do is two phone calls, right? Cold call once, double tap them twice, leave a voicemail. And then if you want to SMS, you can SMS this. I don't yet. I will be SMSing, I think, in the future. I will be testing it. And then we drop emails. That's how we do cold outreach. So double tap, cold call once, cold call twice, drop a voicemail saying that, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of the seller, blah, blah, blah. You can do SMS and then email. So you're hitting them 5 different times, 5 touches in a single day. Okay. Cool. Goal setting. This is so important for your team. If you don't have goals, you cannot achieve, right? Does that make sense? So, what do I mean by goals? How many of you guys set your goals? Raise your hand. Do you have a revenue goal per quarter? What the heck? Meeting schedule is about to end. Okay, so let's say you have a goal. So, are you an annual goal setter? I know a lot of people do annual goals, right? They're like, "Oh, it's the new year. I'm going to set a goal. I want to make 100 grand this year," right? I I don't really agree with that because what do you think is better? Do you think setting quarterly goals, monthly goals, and weekly goals is better than an annual goal? Do you guys think there's a difference, or do you prefer one or the other? Smaller meals are easier to eat. Absolutely, right? Because if you don't have a system, if you don't have a system where you don't have goals, where an annual goal is a little far away, in my opinion. Because here's the thing: if you want to make 100 grand and you've made $0 in the last month, you're gonna be a little discouraged, right? So what you got to do is you got to figure out what your annual or what your quarterly goal is. So I'm gonna do an exercise here. Is it okay if I plug in my iPad here? Perfect. So let's do some quarterly goals, right? So let's say your quarterly goal, and if you guys don't know, quarterly is 3 months, right? Every 3 months is a quarter. So let's say you want to make 100 grand this quarter. I know this could seem like a big number, but when you start chunking it down, that's why I like using this big number because I like chunking it down for you guys, right? So in 3 months, your goal is to make 100 grand. Okay. The industry standard for amount of deals closed is about 70%. So if you have 10 deals under contract, expect seven to close. That's just a side note for you guys to think about. So if you're trying to make 100 grand in a quarter, so you need to make how much money every month? Someone who's good at math. I think it's like 33.3, right? So let's just go with 33,000. So you need to make 33,000 per month, right? So this is your monthly goal. 33K per month. Now, remember what I talked about in the very beginning. I talked about how you needed to figure out what your cost per contract or cost per deal is in your market. So if we use Houston, Texas, we do $15,000 assignment fees for cash, right? So if we're doing $15,000 per assignment in my cost per deal, so this is profit per deal, you need about 2 deals a month. So now 2 deals per month. Does that seem a lot more palatable than trying to make 100 grand this quarter? You only need 2 deals a month. And how are you going to get those 2 deals a month? By tracking your metrics, right? So what we like to do is after every, so let's say we have process calls. Remember that script that we covered? We have our process calls and we have our offer calls and then contracts, right? So this is our month. So every 2.5 process calls, we want at least one offer. Okay. Every 2.5 process calls. So this is where your sales audit and your sales system is a big deal. Because what if you have 10 process calls? So let's say your acquisition manager talked to 10 different sellers, had really good motivation, and only sent 2 contracts. To me, that is a no-go. That is not good. We need to listen to those calls. So now what we need to do is as the acquisition manager, you need to listen to all the calls. Because what if you pick up something? Oh, one seller said this and is motivated. You just saved yourself $15,000 because you listened to that phone call. But how would you know that your acquisition manager didn't do a good job if you weren't tracking this data? Right? Because right off this cusp, I'm like, dang, you did 10 process calls, but you only made 2 offers. You listen to all the calls and you find 1 or 2 sellers that you probably could have closed because you realized that the seller had a different motivator that you didn't understand. So then you ended up calling the seller and then you end up closing a deal. And guess what? Our average contract per deal is 15 grand, right? So now we just made $15,000 that we didn't normally have. Does this all make sense? Do you see why it makes sense to make a quarterly goal and break it down chunk by chunk by chunk and then tracking your numbers to make it all make sense for you? This is can I get a woo in the chat? Is this helpful? Awesome. 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 Cool. This is, remember, this is just a brief overview, right? But this is why it's important to track these things so you can make better decisions. Now, let's do a scenario where your acquisition manager is doing a good job, but you're not getting good data, right? Let's say you're cold calling these people, you're doing direct mail, and you're not getting any opportunities. Let's say he's only had 3 process calls and now he's made 0 offers. So now, if you listen to their calls, so now you want to listen to the calls, listen to calls, and you want to see like, okay, has he been asking the right questions? Has he been doing this? And if he's meeting all the requirements that you need, then maybe it's a data problem. So now you know it's not this. So now let's dive into it deeper. So this is where the advanced level of tracking your KPIs and tracking your teams. And I know I'm going a little ahead, but I want you guys to understand what it takes to run a big wholesale operation, or not a big wholesale operation, but a efficient wholesale operation. Okay. Now you want to break this down even more. So now you want to look at your cold call data. What does ready mode say? Do you have a low connection? Right? Remember the document that I guys showed you in the very, very beginning about tracking your marketing KPIs? Is your connection low? Are you having conversations, having convos over 1 minute? If it's all no, 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 you need to shift your marketing strategy. You need to adjust to a different data source. You need to adjust to a different lead generation type. That's a marketing problem. But if you're generating opportunities like up here, this 10 process calls, you know it's not a marketing problem, it's more of a sales process. How do you assess bad lead data versus bad skip trace data? That you need to test further again, right? So if it's like, because I know you use county courthouse record as well. So in your situation specifically, I think it's yeah, like Brian says, one thing is disconnections, but also two is if it's courthouse record data, you know that it's motivation, right? You know the motivation's there. So it would be worth it for me to skip trace them with a secondary source, right? I would do a skip trace. I would spend the $10, $20, skip trace them again, and then try to hit them because those are high motivators. If they're bulk data, then I probably wouldn't recommend doing it, honestly. So that was the end of the sales optimization training. And now you have 2 choices. So option A is you take all this information that I taught you guys today, you take it, you copy it, and you implement it in your business and make some money with it. Or option two, these are the people that are looking for some help. A lot of people, 9 out of 10 people who take option A end up not taking action because they just don't know what to do. And this is a really hard business to do on your own. But in option B, we actually help people scale their business with coaching, mentoring, and guidance. And that's exactly what we provide inside of the community. So this is the New Breed Investors Scale course, and we help impact-driven operators scale their businesses. Scaling a business is hard, and unfortunately it's lonely. But what if I could help you solve your biggest problem in your business? And the biggest problem is usually profitable marketing. Because imagine spending $10,000 a month in marketing just to close 1 to 2 deals per month is not a sustainable business model. And I'm going to teach you how to fix that. And then I'm going to show you exactly how to scale your marketing and to hire out a lean and efficient team to help you close more deals. Let me ask, what would that do for you? Being able to make $20,000, $30,000 a month by not spending tens of thousands of dollars in marketing just to get leads. There's only one way to do it right, and trust us, we've tried them all. I've tried the do it yourself programs where you buy a course, you watch a bunch of videos, and then you have to implement it yourself, and that's it. And that's not the recipe for success. And unfortunately, we are not a done for you program where you pay us, we manage your leads, we call your leads, and we close deals for you. That's not what we're trying to teach you. What we try to do is we give you the actual skills, we keep you accountable, and we help you become a better operator to close more deals. And that's what we offer you in the New Breed Investors Scale program. It is a done with you where you get coaching calls with us every single week. We help track your KPIs and we keep your team accountable to close more deals and make more profits. If you're a type of person that is hardworking, you believe in yourself, and you have money to invest in your business, I definitely want to see if I can help you. If you're interested in this, please book a call with me. The link is down in the description, and I hope to see you there. Peace.